Hey, what's up, everybody? Thanks for listening. Welcome back to another episode of the Business Owner's Freedom Formula Show, where we chat with inspiring entrepreneurs and dig into their highs, lows, and everything in between of their business building journey and learn about how they've been able to achieve ultimate freedom. In today's episode, episode number 8, we have another great guest with us here today. But before we get started, just a quick reminder that you can get all the show notes by going to our website, paulmaskill.com. And if you're looking to mastermind with like-minded business owners who are also listening to the show, jump into our free Facebook group at bizfreedomformula.com. And we do our best to keep all of our shows real and authentic by recording in video as well with no edits. So you can check those out on Facebook and YouTube if that is your forte. So we're going to jump right in. We have here Mary Lou Kayser. She is a best-selling author, entrepreneur, podcast host, and consultant who helps professionals effectively navigate the evolving model of work so they feel excited, empowered, and enthusiastic about themselves and what they do in an accelerated climate of new challenges, opportunities, and constant change. Her expertise is in communication, especially writing and publishing for the 21st century, providing powerful strategies for people who want to expand their brand, step into new leadership roles, and increase their market visibility with a legacy book. Mary Lou lives on the edge of rainy Oregon wine country and loves anything that has to do with her favorite football team, although not doing well right now, the Oregon Ducks. So that is Mary Lou Kayser from Play Your Position in the Kingfisher Experience. Welcome, Mary Lou. How's it going?
Well, thank you for that wonderful introduction, Paul. And I want to just say the Oregon Ducks are going to have a great season this year. So,
well, good. I think there's only one way for them to go, and I think that is up and forward.
That's right.
So what are you? So give us a little bit more background on what you're doing today. Kind of, it sounds like obviously you use communication and writing to get people's message out there, turn them into fantastic leaders. But what is everything that you're doing all about?
Well, at the core of what I do, Paul, my mission is to empower people to navigate favorably the 21st century. Things have changed so fast, as you know. You work with systems, you work with processes, and everybody is in the same space of wondering, what do I do? Where do I go? What makes sense for me? How do I get my message out there? Do I even have a message to get out there? So all of those things, and my specialty is really in writing and publishing as a leadership development tool, as an empowerment tool, and also just as a marketing tool. Because even though things are now more visual with, like you said at the beginning, this will be on YouTube, and Instagram is popular with images, the fact remains that writing and publishing are more important than ever to not just please Google and the search engines, but also to honestly expand your space, your little world, into the big world. So that's a little bit more about what I'm about.
All right, and give our listeners a little bit more insight into how you actually got started in this, because it's a very interesting avenue, and I think you kind of hit on, at the core of it, it's still the same. You have a message to get out. If you don't know what that message is, obviously that's the first step. And how you get that message out, there's so many really just information overload, platform overload. So how did you get started in the first place, and how has it kind of evolved with technology and everything that's out there today?
Well, because I am of a certain age, I'm not a millennial, I'm a Gen Xer. So I remember life before the internet. And in that previous life of mine, I was an English teacher at both the high school and the college levels. I worked with people to develop them into writers and thinkers and leaders. And when the internet boomed, the second one came along in the mid-2000s, I was at a point in my career where I'd done that institutional teaching and was ready to go out on my own. So I made the leap in 2005, and then we all know what happened in 2008, the crash, everything got turned upside down, and I realized that the internet wasn't going away, so I better get on board and figure out, where do I fit in with this amazing new system that is connecting people around the world? And so I married, essentially, my background, my love of books and writing and communications with the technologies of the 21st century. And in 2011, when Amazon first started to promote their self-publishing platform, I got really excited about that. because it meant the gatekeepers were gone. It meant that people who wanted to get a book up there could. And it's amazing. I'm still to this day astounded at what's possible with, again, platforms like Amazon. Certainly you can publish on Facebook and Twitter, but it's a different thing. Amazon gives people who have a book the chance to sell it anywhere in the world.
And why is that so important? Like if I'm a business owner and I'm leading an organization, why is that so important to me? Why do I need to get a book out there and get it published in front of other people?
Well, a book is that asset that nobody can take away from you. It's something that you own. It represents your ideas, your vision. I work with a lot of people who have been doing something for quite some time, and they either have a passion project, which would be their book, because they have an idea that they want to explore and put it out there to take them into that new space of their life, or they have, for example, there are a lot of baby boomers right now who have been working for companies at upper management or even at the owner or CEO level, and their story is important. We need to ground this century in those stories of how did we get here? What was the path that led people, this organization, this company, the talent that works within these walls? What is the story behind there? For example, I just finished reading Phil Knight's memoir, Shoe Dog. Perfect example of a legacy book. Here's a man who has built this incredible empire. Nobody can argue with that. And he wrote the story of how Nike came to be. That's a big example. But there are a lot of people who have just as important a story that it can be. When I use the word legacy book, it really is leaving your legacy. It's not leaving this planet without making sure people know who were you, what did you stand for, why did it matter, and why does it matter moving forward?
Awesome. Well, when I'm ready for that legacy book, I definitely know where to go. I've known Mary Lou for quite a while. Her podcast, if you are into sports, she mentioned Phil Knight. She's in Oregon Ducks territory. Her podcast is fantastic as well. If you like football, it's all about kind of football analogies and whatever types of words you want to call it, but it's all related to football, and you're moving the chains and moving down the field. You're about to score. And now I see where that really comes full circle when you're writing a story. And I think that's really important for really any business owner, because I heard this quote with Tom Schwab a couple episodes ago. And he said, what's simple and ordinary to you can be extraordinary to someone else. So your story, as you document what you're building, I think that's huge. You can really leverage and monetize what you've already done, because that's what a lot of other people want to do as well. So I think that's another aspect that you really hit on, that a lot of people don't think about. It's like, okay, I'm building my business and I'm doing this, and then when I'm done, and then I'm going to go retire and sit on the beach and, enjoy retirement. But that story, that could inspire so many people, and you could leverage that for a whole nother, almost another different career. So
that's right.
That is awesome. And you've talked a lot about kind of building leaders, whether they're within an organization or they're owning their own business. We have a lot of business owners that listen to the show. And I work with a lot of business owners that it's shifting them from being a manager to a leader. And they always want to control everything. They want to be Superman. They don't want anybody else to do anything. But obviously, to build any business, you got to give up control. So in your opinion, with all of your experience talking to people, what's kind of the best way for a business owner to going from wanting to do everything and being a manager to really empowering, their staff and their team and their people, and trusting them for them to become a leader?
I think it starts with themselves. It starts with deciding that, first of all, I understand that feeling, because I am an entrepreneur and I know what it's like to wear many hats and feel there's this sense of I can do it to my standards. I don't know if anybody else can. That's a very common thing right now, right?
Exactly.
But here's the thing. There's so much freedom in letting go. There's so much freedom in saying, I can bring on people who are really good at the things that they're really good at, that's going to allow me to focus on what I'm really good at. But I was just listening to a podcast yesterday. It was an interview with Matt Mullenweg, who founded WordPress. Mm-hmm. And this guy talks about, he was 19 years old when he dropped out of college. At age 20, he founded WordPress. Now it's valued at over $1 billion. 25% of the internet runs on WordPress, sites like New York Times, the Wall Street Journal. If you're, I run my businesses on WordPress. So I'm listening to him, and he's talking about he has built a business now that has 500 employees. Now, in the beginning, he was doing everything. And he was talking about how one of the things he is not good at is running meetings. He says, I just am terrible at running meetings. But if you have a business, you have to run meetings. So he realized if he handed it over to somebody on his staff who he had witnessed run meetings so well, he said, I just feel this sense of huge relief. He's sleeping better at night. So if those are the things that are important to you, again, you've got to start with yourself and say, why am I holding on to the need to control everything? What am I gaining from that? What am I losing? What am I losing? Am I stressed out? Am I overeating? Am I not sleeping? Am I not giving enough time to the relationships in my life? We talk about these things in modern life of balance and having work-life friendliness and so forth. And if you're trying to do everything, you're stealing time from things that, again, somebody else out there is perfectly capable of doing. And it's freedom, Paul. It's about freeing your life so you can enjoy more of what you're building.
Totally agree. And I think that, we all started our own business because we wanted that freedom. We didn't want to be someone else's employee. We wanted to be the boss. We wanted to work from home, whatever it was. It boiled down to freedom. And then unfortunately, as your business grows, you want to control everything. And that's, exactly what you said. You really got to focus on your strengths and weaknesses. I was just working with a client earlier today, and we did kind of an exercise where he printed out a simple piece of paper, gave it to 5 of his employees as well as his spouse. What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? Mm-hmm. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? And then he got them back, and he was like, holy cow, I never saw that in myself, but then I didn't know that this person hated doing this part, and then this person loved doing that, and then all of a sudden you realize you can really leverage everybody's strengths, don't worry about weaknesses, and then you're going to get everybody to where they want to go much quicker. So I think that's really it. It starts with yourself being a leader, being, the one, mm-hmm. the one at the end of the day that's owning the business. So give us a little bit more look into what's a normal day in the life of Mary Lou now that you're working with all these different people from different backgrounds and helping them tell their story and become leaders. What does a normal day look like for you?
Well, the word normal is not in my vocabulary.
Perfect. We'll do air quotes. A normal day.
Yeah. A lot of listeners are going to be laughing because, who has a normal day anymore? However, that said, I do have routines that I guard fiercely. And one of them is the first thing when I get up in the morning is I come into my office, which I am standing in right now, and I journal for 15 minutes. I devote that early part where my brain is still waking up. Actually, there's one step before that. I go into my kitchen and I create my morning health cocktail. It's non-alcoholic. It's full of amazing antioxidants and greens and all that stuff. And I really get my system going. And then I come in to my home office and I close the door and I commit to 15 minutes of free writing in my journal. And I'll tell you that if something happens in my day that disrupts that, for example, if I'm traveling and I have to catch an early morning flight and I do it on the plane instead, I notice a difference. So that routine really sets the stage. And then from there, it could be a variety of things. For example, today I knew I had this conversation with you. So I spent the morning reviewing what we were going to be talking about, looking at my calendar for what I have later. I'm speaking tonight for an organization. I've got to get those notes ready. So, tomorrow I'm meeting somebody in downtown Portland. So essentially, to make this brief, I use a calendar very strategically. I always check my calendar after I'm done writing. I look at my calendar and say, okay, what is urgent? What do I not have to worry about? And I keep a running list of things that I want to accomplish each week. And it's amazing because what you write down is oftentimes what happens. Now, it may not happen when you say you want it to. Like if you set a simple goal, like by the end of this week, I'll have 2 more podcasts recorded. Well, we all know that a guest may have an emergency, and so one podcast gets delayed. So did you fail because you didn't achieve that? No, you just pivot. You just say, What can I use that time for? Now that I've been given this gift of an extra hour, what can I do that I've pushed aside and then get to that?
Awesome. Our mornings sound very similar. And I think if you listen to any really successful entrepreneur, your day is only going to be as successful as how you started. And if you don't have a morning routine, highly encourage everybody to look into having a morning routine. It can be different for everybody. But I found when I was running my previous business, at first I would just wake up, check my phone right away. And then it was like all of a sudden my brain was scattered and I was worried and running around, and I didn't feel like I had time to shower or eat because all of a sudden these pressing issues, which weren't pressing until I checked my phone, which I could have waited an hour to do, really kind of throws the whole day off. And like you said, when you're traveling, you can tell from a mindset and, just how you feel and how productive you are. Whatever your morning routine is, if you don't have one, there's a ton of resources out there. I first kind of got the idea from Hal Elrod, the Miracle Morning. Tony Robbins has a lot of good stuff. There's so much different stuff, but I think the idea of writing, I have my little journal right here. If you're watching video, you can see it. It's my brag book and gratitude journal, and I just write for 15 minutes of, things I've accomplished that sometimes we forget. There you go. You can see Mary Lou's there as well. So really just kind of celebrating my wins, because as entrepreneurs, we're always looking forward and we're always trying to get the next thing done. And sometimes it's good to just sit down and remind yourself what you've actually accomplished. So,
and can I say one more quick thing about
the
morning? The most important person in your life is that person looking back at you in the mirror when you stand at the sink. You've got to take care of yourself first. It's not selfish. It empowers everybody in your life, because if you are allowing, you just said, if you are giving all your power to this, you have just basically, you might as well forget it, because you've got to put yourself first. I'm a huge advocate for that. And whether you write or meditate or do yoga for 15 minutes or take a walk, it doesn't matter. Find something that helps anchor you and what matters to you. And then the rest of the day, you'll be able to put out fires, because we're putting out fires sometimes during the day, but you'll be so much more effective at putting them out than if you allow the notifications from Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and Skype and all that stuff to overwhelm you and set the tone for the day.
Well said. And that's totally true. I tell all my clients, I tell myself that if you can't take care of yourself, there's no way you can take care of your client or your customers. So you got to take care of yourself first, set your day off right. And whatever your routine is, walking, working out, yoga, writing, meditating, find something that works for you and get your day started off right. So obviously we are all about systems and processes, and that's a huge part of everyone's day. So as you get along working in your day, what are some systems other than working from your calendar that you have in place for you or your clients, whether it's a piece of technology or just kind of a mind frame that you have in place that you really, really believe in?
Wow, that is such a great question. I developed the system that I use with my clients when we're working on a project together, and that came out of several years of my teaching background, but also just developing as we go, which again, that's one of the things that small business owners need to do, is figure out what is your patented system for achieving the results that you're promising to give your clients. But as far as, gosh, I love Twitter as far as a system for finding trends and things that are important. I use Buffer. That's another. So I set every Sunday, I set aside 30 minutes and I load my buffer for the next 7 to 10 days. And then it's a set it and forget it. That is a fabulous system, because here's the reality. We need to be playing in the social media space, but to stop in the middle of your flow and go, oh, I need to update, fill in the blank, not so good. So I love Buffer. And I'll tell you, Paul, Gmail is a great system. It organizes things when you open up your inbox. And I've learned well from Tim Ferriss that he teaches, look at your email in the morning and look at it at night, and do not be tempted to go in. You can even set a message in there, that automated message, if you don't want people to think, oh, she or he is
ignoring me.
Put that, say, hey, I'm really busy on something right now. If you really need to get a hold of me, you've got my number, text me. And that takes so much pressure off. So when you're in the midst of a big project and you don't want to be tempted to go into your email, you can set that up within Google or within Gmail. And again, it just takes that pressure off you to focus on what matters.
Awesome. And focusing on what matters, really, if we are the business owner, we really do need to do that. And we really need to protect our time. And our time is sacred. You only have 168 hours in a week. You cannot get more. It's one of the only assets that you cannot just go get more of. So really protect your time. And I'm a huge fan of exactly what you said, time blocking. So check your email for 30 minutes in the morning and 30 minutes, in the evening. If you have to do it a third time, maybe 30 minutes at lunch, but you'll realize that when you protect your time and you're proactive in getting stuff done, you can, with a systematic way, you can really get a lot more accomplished and have a lot less distraction. So another thing I wanted to hit on, I was on your website, and kind of the main quote that I took away, it says, "You're not here to be average." So obviously that's fantastic. How do you leverage that within your business and within your clients?
Well, we just start from that. I ask them, do you want to be average? Just point blank. What does that mean to you? And not one person has ever said, yes, Mary Lou, I just want to be average. And so then from there, we just look at what do you currently have in place that's working for you? Where are the gaps? And then how can we up level to a more extraordinary experience, maybe in just one thing? That's the thing too, is I'm very keen on helping people relax about, get rid of the FOMO, the fear of missing out,
That's hard to do in the social media world.
I know it is, because we're always comparing ourselves to what we see, but again, it's a mindset. So I always start with that, and we may talk about that for 30 minutes, and I extract from them what are the barriers that are getting in their way. Are they physical, like literally physical barriers, or are they more of those self-limiting beliefs? Because at the end of the day, we know one of the reasons Tony Robbins is as successful as he is because we humans are terrible at getting out of our own way. So even if you studied under him, you've gone to his Date with Destiny or watched that amazing documentary, I'm Not Your Guru, which I recommend to all your listeners. If you haven't watched it, it's phenomenal. But the point is, Paul, that nobody, I just really believe that we're not here to be average. And if you're playing small, if you're not developing something because you're afraid, because you had something happen in your childhood, we've got to get beyond that and realize that who are you not to play big, right? Why is that designated just for the big names? Guess what? They weren't big at one time. And maybe being at the Tony Robbins or Tim Ferriss level is not what you want, but you want to add an extra 20 grand to your bottom line in the next year. There are ways to do that. But in order to do that, you're going to have to stop being at that level you're at and take a few risks, calculated risks, but risks nonetheless. Risks to looking or feeling uncomfortable. I was actually having this conversation with my son the other day. I was, he's a senior in high school. He's getting ready to graduate. We're in that waiting period of who wants him, because he's going to go to college. He wants the traditional route. I support that. I believe college still has a place in our society. And he was sharing his senior project with me. And it was so cool to hear the evolution. He's been at a 6 through 12 school. And so from 6th grade to 12th grade, how has he grown? And he really had that insight. And he was saying, Mom, I used to think I had to be really great right out of the gate at something. And whenever I was faced with something new, I would either act like I was awesome but then I wouldn't do it, or I would just shrink and not do it at all. And then he would fail. And that was his punishment. Basically, the system has those in place. Well, the same thing in business, right? Yeah. Here's what happens. We get really good at one thing and we think, because I'm really good at this, I should be good at everything. I don't want to be a beginner, but you have to be a beginner. So average is the starting point. That's where we all are. Like today, tomorrow I will be better than I am today. So will you. It's just a mindset and then we map it out. What are the steps, the specific steps we have to take to get you to getting that book written, getting that curriculum developed, whatever it may be.
That's great. And the whole FOMO thing really, I mean, that really kind of hits home to a lot of people, because you're on social media and you see these people having massive success. So how I went, from 0 to 6 figures in X amount of time, or how I'm here now and I got 10,000 people following me and 20,000 downloads, whatever it is. But exactly like you said, if they can do it, so can we. They didn't just, they're not magic. They have no skills that we can't acquire and that we can't focus on. And we have something that we're really good at. Unfortunately, people on social media, they never share all the other things that it took to get there. And the ones that do are the ones that are really successful because they're actually pretty genuine. So, when you see those things, don't get discouraged that, oh man, their business is way bigger than mine. Well, at one point they had $0 in the bank too. And then they got $1 and then they turned that into 2 to 4 to 8. So, and I think, if anybody follows Gary Vaynerchuk, he really hits on it too. Like 10 years ago, he was a nobody with one person watching his YouTube videos. And he's persisted because he believed in what he's doing. And I think, going back to your quote, if you're not here to be average, you have something you're really good at. If you believe in it, you just got to continue to do it. So I think that's something that our listeners will definitely take away from this conversation. So, what are kind of the future plans? You said you're going to be better tomorrow than you are today. What are the future plans for Mary Lou Kayser, and what's in store for you and your clients?
Oh my gosh, I'm right on. I'm in talks right now with a couple of clients to work on a pretty big project. One of the goals I set for 2017 is for me to be out in front of audiences more regularly. I'm in people's ears through my podcast, which I love, and I write regularly on my blog, but I've realized, Paul, quite frankly, that where I get business, where I actually seal the deal, is from real relationships. Imagine that, face to face, sitting down with people.
Real people
who see me, who hear me in person, who I ask questions. I'm a big question asker. And so for the rest of this year, I'm actually meeting with a potential client on Friday. If that goes through, that'll be a 15-month project. And in the meantime, on a smaller scale, I'm actively pursuing physical speaking gigs where I can be in front of an audience and help them, again, navigate this crazy new world we live in and feel empowered about it. I think, to your point earlier, there's an intimidation around people look on social media and see the success and think, I could never be that. I could never do that. And so one of my roles is to tell them, hey, yes, you can, if it really matters to you. If it doesn't matter to you and you're just giving it lip service, then no, you'll never get there. Consistency over time, those small steps. There's that old saying, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. And these, again, big people that we see with giant numbers and huge incomes during the month, they at one time were scared. And guess what? They're still scared. There's that, again, I love these things, new level, new devil, right? So people hit that $1 million mark in their business, and all of a sudden they're in a room with people who are at 10 million. And they're like, man, how do I get there? Or they've hit 10 million and they're in a room with 100 millionaires, right? Like people who are making $100 million. And again, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and there was this recent interview where the guy was saying he was in a room with billionaires. In fact, I think it was Tony Robbins talking about that, and he overheard a couple of guys talking, and one guy was like, man, I can't believe Larry Page, who founded Google, is worth 20 million and I'm only worth 2. So even at the billionaire level, they're comparing, feeling like they're losers.
I think if you think about kind of the evolution of, you look at your son right now, and like when I was a kid and you were a kid, you get that first car and it was, it's nothing fancy, but to you, it's everything. And then you get a job and you're making minimum wage. And then all of a sudden you're making $15 an hour, then $20. And then you keep moving up, and then you're looking back and like, it's like, wow, how did I survive? I still remember my first job in Chicago. I was making $13 an hour, living in the city in a 150 square foot studio. But that was the best. At that point, kind of like what you said, make tomorrow better than today. At that point, it was the best thing I've ever had. and then I moved up to a 1-bedroom condo, and then I had a washer and dryer in unit. So it's, when you keep moving forward, and I think that's the key, is when you believe in what you're doing, you do keep moving forward. So with all those things you got in mind, sounds like you got a lot of irons in the fire. So how do you balance all of that while still maintaining that freedom you sought when you first, ventured out on your own 10-ish years ago?
I love what I do, Paul. So for me, when I show up, I'm playing. I'm having fun. So I'm not thinking about, I think that meant, and I thought about this, is when we're an employee, if and there may be some listeners who have been employees as well as now entrepreneurs, when you've worked for somebody else, that time is structured for you, and you clock in and you clock out. And when I taught, I would get to school at 7 a.m. and I would leave at 3:30. And when I shut the door behind me, I was off on my own. I could go to the mall. I could go work out. I wasn't thinking about, I was thinking about work, but not in the way that as entrepreneurs, it really can be a 24/7. You could be sitting in your chair at night watching a Netflix video, but in your mind, you're thinking about, tomorrow, that's how entrepreneurs think, right? So my secret is I just trained myself to see what I do. I'm so lucky. I think about how fortunate I am. I'm in my home office. I didn't have to commute. I got dressed up today because I knew I was going to be on video. And I do dress. I show up for myself. Okay. I put on the uniform, and when I come in this office, I am working. And I'm having fun doing it because I'm adding value. I'm working with ideas. I'm working with people that I like. And I'm not dealing with the negativity or the gossip or all the nonsense that when you work in a big corporation or even in a mid-sized, you're going to be dealing with people who don't have the same mindset. And that's why I love what I do. And I'll tell you one thing. I build my year around spending 3 to 4 weeks in the summer at my family's camp in Maine. So those are sacred to me. I know that if I get no other time off, those 3 to 4 weeks are where I completely unplug. I swim, I kayak, I'm with my family, I'm laughing, we're campfiring. It's amazing. And honestly, I'll take a weekend here and there where I just don't check my email or do anything with the business. But balance is such a funny word. I don't believe in balance. I don't think nature isn't balanced. If you look at things, nothing is symmetrical. Even our faces aren't even. One eye might be lower, one ear might be higher, but it's a mindset. It's a mindset about this. For me is freedom.
Totally agree. And I think that's huge. And, like you said, balance is, if you're a business owner, is probably not really in your vocabulary, because you do have, as the owner, you have the freedom to choose when to do what you want to do, as long as you have kind of those systems and processes in place and you're not always just trying to keep the ship afloat. So I think a lot of our listeners can take a lot out of that. That's really how I structure my day as well, and structure my months and years is, where first, like you said, we got to take care of ourselves. So how am I going to do that? I'm going to do it every morning. And then you have your 3 to 4 weeks in Maine. Everybody else might have something different that they have to take care of themselves. Maybe they have 1 weekend a month where they, go out and camp and don't turn on their phone or a computer or anything. But whatever it is, when you are your owner, you want to make sure you're proactively taking care of yourself so that work is not consuming you. But when you do love what you do, I'm in the same boat. I work more now than I worked in corporate America, but I love it because I'm serving other people. I'm getting a return on that, and I'm actually making a difference. Whereas, at least you're teaching children and kind of impacting the next generation. Me personally, I was working in a cubicle with, in my opinion, no value added to anybody in this world other than maybe some stockholders that they didn't really care about me anyway. So
yeah, office space, right?
Yes. Office space was my life for 3 years, and that was enough for me. So I'm glad we are here now. So
that's right.
So with that being said, all good things do come to an end. After all, we are all about freedom on the show, so we don't want to take up too much of your time or our listeners' time. But before we sign off, it is time for our rapid recommendations for all things related to systems, automation, and freedom. So we've got 6 things here. I'm going to fire them off to you. You're going to give me one thing for each category that our listeners should check out based on your recommendation. So first things first is a book.
Shoe Dog by Phil Knight.
There you go. So she just finished Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. If you don't know who Phil Knight is, founder of Nike. What about one quote?
Whatever comes, just don't stop.
Awesome. What about one tool?
Twitter.
Twitter. So a lot of people say Twitter's dead. You still love Twitter. And I think how you use any tool is really important. So you use it to find trends. If you're a business owner, you can always find a lot of good trends on Twitter. So what about one podcast? I know you said you like to listen to a lot of podcasts.
Oh my gosh. How do I pick just one? The Pivot Podcast with Jenny Blake.
Interesting. Never listened to that. I'll have to check that out. What about one community, whether it's local or online, that you like to hang out in?
Well, I like my local tap house, quite frankly.
That's a good place to be. That is great. So if you have a local tap house, go hang out there and strike up conversations. You never know who you'll meet, and you never know who they know. What about one parting piece of advice for any business owner out there who is stuck, burned out, or just trying to get over the hump?
My one piece of advice would be take some time for yourself. Get a piece of paper. If you don't like to write, get your smartphone open and just talk and figure out, where are you right now? Be honest with yourself. Do a quick self-assessment. And if you're burned out or stuck, that's telling you something. That's a huge red flag. It's like in our bodies, when we have heartburn or a muscle ache, pain is telling us something very loud. Don't ignore it. Take the time to figure out, and maybe it is time to do a slight pivot. Doesn't have to be radical. It might be just 10 degrees, but take that time, block off an hour for yourself and really listen. What is your heart and soul telling you?
Awesome. Love it. Great piece of advice there. Mary Lou Kayser, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to impart some of your knowledge, wisdom, and enthusiasm to our community. Hopefully this helps everyone out there get one step closer to achieving ultimate freedom in business and in life. But before we sign off, where can our listeners go to keep in touch with you?
They can visit me on my website at maryloukayser.com. It's MaryLoukayser.com. And I do have a special little gift that I think could help your listeners. Paul, if I can share that.
Perfect. What do you got?
Okay, so I have a really cool workbook that allows people to really think about these leadership skills. It's called the 11 Essential Leadership Skills Every Professional Must Master for 21st Century Success. And they can download that at pyppodcast.com/BOFF. And
awesome.
It's really comprehensive. That could be the thing you use in the hour to figure out, where are you at right now?
That's great. Thank you so much for taking the time to put that together for our listeners. Again, it's pyppodcast.com/BOFF. And any business owner out there, your end goal should be a leader of your team, your family, and your life. So make sure you check that out. There's 11 good things in there that you should check out when you're starting to take care of yourself. So again, her website, pyppodcast.com/BOFF. We will link that all up in the show notes. If you want to hang out with her on Twitter, it's just her name, Mary Lou Kayser, Kayser is how you spell her last name. Same thing on Instagram. If you want to hang out on Facebook, if that's your thing, facebook.com/forward motion. So that is all the time we have with Mary Lou. Stay tuned for next week's episode as we dive in to another fantastic interview with Wally Carmichael from Men of Abundance. And if you like what you're hearing, we'd always appreciate a friendly review, subscribe, or share with your friends. So until next time, don't forget, join our free Facebook group at bizfreedomformula.com, where we can continue the conversation with like-minded entrepreneurs who are listening to the show and putting the plans in place to work less, make more, while increasing the value of their business and achieving ultimate freedom. Mary Lou, thanks again for hanging out with us, and hopefully the rain in Oregon stops soon.
Thank you, Paul. This has been great.
Awesome. Thanks again. Keep rocking, guys. Trust the process. We'll talk to you soon.